we're moving now to our next panel discussion. And just a little reminder, I'm sorry to do this to you, Ankita, but because we have paucity of time, we are already running late on schedule. So I would request our panelists and moderator to keep it crisp, short, and super, super entertaining and engaging. We are Gen Z audience here, isn't it? Most of us? Yes? And what is our attention span like? Yeah, we want 30-second reels. 5-second? Wow, I last heard it was 8. It's shortening by the day. So, panelists, you have a really tough one to carry because the topic is also how brands can truly connect with Gen Z. So we gotta keep it short and crisp. Let's welcome first our moderator for the session, Ankita Mitra, lead content and PR at Muthoot FinCorp. One big round of applause, everyone. Very warm welcome to you. Till then, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us on our panel Sonia Nahar, Group Head, Social Media and Influencer Marketing at Barcode Entertainment. Come on, rumble it up. Very warm welcome. We also have with us Forum Dhruv, Business Head, Digital Media and Performance Marketing at Oso Digital. Very warm welcome. On the panel, we are also joined by Muskan Rathod, founder and CEO at Mavericks Digitals. Hello everybody, are you here with me? Wonderful. All right, we also have on the panel Neha Ummat, Content Strategy and Operations Lead India at Meta. Everyone put your hands together for Neha. Joining us on the panel, we have Satinder Thakur, Head of Department EMDI Events, EMDI Institute of Media and Communication. Put your hands together and welcome Satinder. And last but not the least, please welcome Chandni Gaglani, Head of Isle Network. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Wonderful. So it's a panel of power women. Let's give them a big round of applause one more time. And Ankita, I'd leave the stage to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's 10:30 a.m. and the coffee is still fresh in our veins. And we are all here, awake and ready. Actually, it's 11:30 now. Apologies. And this deserves an applause. We are here to talk about Gen Zs and the generation for whom culture is like a Marvel multiverse, expanding it, remixing it, and rewriting it in real time. Blink once, and a trend goes from cute to cringe to camp. Camp means delightfully over the top, by the way. And if you've seen a viral trend, you know exactly what I mean. Now picture the generations as one big WhatsApp group. Actually a family group. Boomers built the house, Gen X judged the decor, millennials added plants, avocado toast, and playlists. And Gen Z walked in, right, and said, we didn't start the fire, but we are re-editing the very season, the very it was not the same energy. And Gen Alpha, they'll skibbity through the living room before we've even found the Wi-Fi password. Gen Z doesn't just consume culture, they steer it. K-drama stares, Barbiecore moods, memes with better plot arcs than films. Their honesty, razor sharp. It's a real vibe. If it's off, it's sus. And if you push too hard, it's delulu. And that's why this panel matters. Because we have the mentors who know exactly what earns a Gen Z's trust. So let's just jump in. We'll start with the first question. Neha, you have a front row seat to how India actually sees platforms versus how brands think India uses these platforms. And those two aren't the same as always. So please tell us from your experience, what are brands still getting wrong when building for Gen Zs on social platforms?
Thank you, Ankita, and it's great being here and great seeing you all here. I don't think I can match up to the Gen Z lingo you just used, but I'll try. I think before we dive into that question, it's important to really decode what are these 1997 to 2012 beings, who are they really? These are guys who've lived through society inequality, they've lived through system inequality, they've lived through Trump getting elected. They've also lived through a global pandemic, right? They can sense fakeness a mile away, right? These are guys who prefer participation over perfection. This cohort prefers personalization over legacy, right? They want engagement over messaging, right? With that little background of really understanding this user segment, I think brands need to really figure out and recognize that they are no longer the stars of the show. They need to find relevant conversations to convey their business messaging. Now, whether that happens in a comment on a reel or in the caption on X, what comes to mind immediately actually is example of Zomato and Swiggy and what they've been doing in the recent past with their campaigns. Brilliant use of real-time moment marketing, great use of relevancy, great use of self-deprecating humor, great use of meme culture. All the boxes are ticked. And that's what brands really need to see. Tapping into community, tapping into relevancy, very critical. Secondly, I'd say, is that brands also need to know that one size does not fit all, specifically when it comes to this cohort. They are incredibly diverse in their identity, in their personalities, in their preferences, and I still see a lot of brands kind of clubbing them into one category. The fix is personalization. It doesn't get better than that. Lastly, in my understanding, in my view, I think brands also need to stop. I might be, don't hold me, this is just, please don't quote me outside, but please don't chase trends aimlessly, right? Trying to win Gen Z with a trend is like narrating a joke at a party that everybody has already heard, right? It doesn't hold value. We'd rather tap into values, we'd rather tap into relevancy, we'd rather tap into creating emotionally resonant content that's entertaining and engaging. And that's what matters. Just to give an example, adding hashtag Black Lives Matter or changing your brand logo to Pride during Pride Month. Please know, this generation understands that appearances and action is not the same. And that, I think, is a very, very critical thing for brands to really look into. Thank you.
Love that, Neha. I mean, I'm sure most of the brands in the room just went like, oof, that's about us. So yeah, we'll move on to Muskan now. Muskan, okay, now that we know what brands get wrong, now let's talk about what Gen Z actually responds to, the real triggers and not the imagined ones. So what are Gen Z audiences that you see are responding to the most right now? Is it the tone? Is it the value? Is it the aesthetics? What is it?
Let's be honest, Gen Zs do not like it when we polish something, like when we extremely polish the content. What Gen Zs love to see are the real content, okay? So basically in this generation, we can identify the inauthenticity in a content in like 3 seconds. So what matters, given your question, are basically the values. We need to be real in our content. We need to have a human voice. We need to stop chasing trends because, you know, trends, they come and go now and then. What would connect a brand with its audience is, for a long term, is basically how much real you are. And that is what matters. So yes, tone and aesthetics are very much important. They are important for the play, but I would say that values are the play themselves. So yeah, I think that every brand needs to keep this in mind, and instead of, you know, chasing the brand colors, the brand palettes and everything, we need to focus on what are we providing and how do we show it on the social media.
Thank you so much. I think this is perfect because at least we now know that Gen Zs don't just kind of sort of respond. They actually hit the nail on the head. And which moves us to the next question with you, Sonia. And Sonia, you watch millennials and Gen Zs behave like two cousins at a shadi, right? Same event, but totally different vibe, right? So tell me, how does a Gen Z's media behavior differ most clearly from millennials?
I think you've put it really right. Those are two cousins, definitely, who are way too apart. I mean, it's like, I think someone from the audience also mentioned about attention span being 5 seconds. I think that's the biggest difference today, where how attention span for Gen Zs today have become more of a snackable content. There was a time we used to see a lot of these ads on television being endorsed by celebs, but now that really doesn't work with them. Something that really drives them is the real content, something which is authentic, something which is raw and unfiltered. The minute you put in those trends, as she mentioned, or something which is really out there, then that is something they're not going to follow. For them, it's authentic, unfiltered, unpolished, and something which is more relevant. The minute you make it interactive with some memes and UGC and challenges, that is where they really want to come and participate. And I think that is what makes them really different from millennials today.
I think that's amazing. I mean, the fact that it reinstates that while most millennials, I think, double tap, I think Gen Zs end up deep diving into the content part of it as well. So we'll move on to Forum now. Forum, please tell us that while credibility is the currency and Gen Zs can smell fake energy faster than anyone else, so let's unpack the creators and please tell us what makes a creator credible to the Gen Zs today.
I think for Gen Z, credibility is not about how famous you are, but how real you are. Hence, like Muskan and Neha already mentioned, that they literally have like an authenticity detector and can spot if anything is fake. So transparency and relatability is extremely important. Nowadays, we are seeing so many credible content creators coming from small towns, speaking in local languages and actually connecting with the audience. And I think second is real value. If the content creator is not, actually putting out what they truly believe in, whether it's mental health or, sustainability, etc., Gen Z can walk away from both the brand and the creator, as they want somebody to keep it 100% real.
I mean, that's exactly what, because I think inherently all of us also believe that authenticity isn't a filter, it is a habit. And I think that's one thing that we should move ahead with. And now to you, Chandni. So Chandni, your industry sees Gen Zs do things that makes everybody else go, wait, what? So please tell us, what are the counterintuitive trends that you've seen with Gen Zs in your industry?
Absolutely, Ankita. I think I have been actually observing Gen Zs since a while, right? Earlier in the e-commerce industry, then fashion, and now in the dating industry, all hotspots to see Gen Z signals evolve, right? And one thing that's become very clear, a common pattern that I've observed is Gen Z has high intentionality. They're more intentional than impulsive. Right, and the minute we start going deeper, in fact, we did a very recent research report in the industry, and 3 eye-opening insights we saw for Gen Zs. One was that we actually believed they would be very pro-AI and pro-tech because they're so tech-savvy, right? The counterintuitive trend out there was they're actually very cautious when they're approaching AI because they've seen their first relationship with AI was deepfakes. Right? So, especially when it comes to personal decisions like, dating, finding my life partner, do I trust AI 100%? Not really. They actually want AI plus human to be involved in that decision making. Right? The second trend that I saw, which was very interesting, is we believed they were the ones who fueled the hookup culture in the dating industry. But they're the ones who are actually saying that this killed the entire matchmaking market and they're more commitment pro versus casual. So that's a very counterintuitive trend. We're seeing more than 69% of Gen Z saying that we want commitment back, we do not want casual. And the third thing that we saw with them was, again, mental health conversations have become the new flirting. Right? So when they're actually talking, because they're so open with this entire phenomena, and when you actually break it down, what does it mean for a brand and a marketeer? All of them are pointing to one direct pattern. They're looking for more trust-related comms. They're looking for, when we say real, authentic, etc., you put it fantastically, by the way. It's not a filter. It's not something which brands can just put on, because first the brand needs to know what they really are, to be that real and to connect with that worldview of a Gen Z, right? So that was one thing we realized. And second is they're not anti-commitment, right? So we realized if you really want to talk to them well, you go down the trust route, consent route, safety route, stay away from gimmicks, stay away from superficial communication, because all of these trends are really pointing towards that. They're going to catch your BS in a minute.
I mean, thank you so much, Chandni. And Gen Zs, please take notes and do connect with Chandni after this. I think you're going to get some fabulous advice. And now, talking about notes, let's move on to Satinder. Satinder, your students are Gen Zs in full HD, okay? They're honest, unfiltered, they give instant feedbacks. So what do they teach brands? I mean, what's that one insight from your classes that would make brands rethink their approach?
One insight I'll give you, that Gen Zs don't have separate life of offline and online. They live one life. That is, what they perceive offline is what they see online. When we teach in our classroom, especially experiential marketing is one of our subjects, which we deep dive into it. We realize that when they get brands on table as a presentation or their thought process, they make us feel that whatever you see at an event or an experience, what you get at an event, is something they would like to see in a real life as well. I'll give you a very quick example. You all know a brand called Nykaa Land, okay? When Nykaa Land started this entire lifestyle festival event, okay, the objective was for the brands to come on table and give that first-hand experience, for each brand, be it your high-end brand to your mass brands. So that's what exactly is the thought process. If you see most of the Gen Zs who would like to be a part of such events, they actually want to experience, and that's when they put from getting that experience offline and putting on Instagram or any medium that this is what I'm enjoying and liking it. That's what we teach in the classroom, and that's exactly is what brands should think about. Like, for example, when Zomato started Zomaland, we have Sneaker Fest, we have Tinder started Camp Tinder. All these brands, when they think through their target audience, especially this generation, they think that let's talk brand together. Let's not separate that. Let them be a participators. So when we design events, especially when our student design, I'll give you a very live example. I was doing the experiential marketing presentation by one of my students. They got Bewakoof as one of the brand to do experiential marketing in a mall. Bewakoof is a very fast fashion brand, right? And it's very connecting to your generation. And what they got on the table is that how you can make that entire brand connected through AI. Of course, you have so many technologies and tools, and perceive the brand as they want to see. They're very honest with their feedbacks. When I deal with them, when I speak to them, they say, ma'am, this brand, I really don't understand. And they have a very honest opinions. When they make opinions, it's very honest. There's not in between. So that's what we do in our class when we do practical case studies or we speak about brands. We literally understand brand in the perspective that how a Gen Z would want to perceive a certain brands, okay? So it's that, in the entire classroom is the Gen Zs and from a particular college, and I deal with you guys on a daily basis, and I really understand that your personality is what you are. So that's exactly the brand should think like. They should perceive their target audience personality and put the brand that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Satinder. That's the kind of feedback that kind of saves the budget and sanity as well, doesn't it? So we'll move on to, again, to Neha. And how can we be here and not talk about AI, okay? And with Neha here, of course, it was coming. So Neha, AI is everywhere. Sometimes helpful, sometimes haunting. So let's tackle the big one. As the floodgates of AI-generated content open wide on platforms like YouTube, FB, and Instagram, we see clear benefits. But what are the red flags that we need to watch out for? And how can we collectively navigate this new landscape?
Thank you. I think apart from just calling out the regular issues or red flags that we see with AI-generated media, which is misinformation, privacy concerns, and accountability, a big one. I think I just want to touch upon a few other latent things that we need to sort of think collectively as an industry, as creators, as users. The first one, I think, is AI slop. I think it's a term that we're all familiar with, very used now, with high proliferation of AI tools in creating AI-generated content. It's become, how do I say this? It's become a race to the bottom as far as content quality goes, right? It's become more about speed and triumph and quantity rather than quality, originality, and genuine insights. The second thing, I think, is algo bias. What I mean by that is we all know that AI is trained on wide, huge data sets that are publicly available, which also gives rise to some kind of biases that exist, which platforms, social media platforms, short-form video, actually amplify because of content moderation policies, content recommendations, and that's where I think we risk some kind of society inequalities that we need to be aware of. And thirdly, I think very important, another important aspect probably is nuance and scalability, right? We do, and this is applicable for creators and users alike, I feel. There is, you use AI to scale, you use AI to perform at scale, but what it really misses is nuance. What it really misses are cultural signals. And that also hampers what is being shared, what is being consumed. It builds more bias than it already exists. I'll just take a minute more on, not a minute, I'm sorry, but a few seconds more on really saying how we should navigate this. I think collectively, I don't say that we don't use AI or avoid AI. I think it needs to be used as a very powerful co-pilot, right? As a productivity tool. So use AI for relevant data, use it for mining huge AI quantity, huge data quantity, but leave the, reserve the emotional connect, reserve the creativity, reserve the originality with humans. So I think as brands, as users, mostly as brands and creators, I think what we really need to introduce is a strategy called human in the loop, right? Which pretty much means that, exactly what I said, use data as you can, but try and sort of get the human element going. For brands, I feel it's very, very critical to develop guidelines, right? That can use, where you run human audits to check on brand voice, alignment, your emotional quotient as a brand, because that's the thing that AI will not be able to resonate with at all. And I think also as brands, what's very critical is transparency. Tell your users, tell your audience what and how are you using AI. I think, and specifically with Gen Zs in mind, transparency, like Sonia mentioned and Forum mentioned, is very, very critical. From a creator perspective, just one thing, I think what they are battling with the AI-generated media overall is what we call as an IP minefield, right? You don't know. I mean, should you be talking, who owns AI content? Is it the prompter? Is it the person who's posting? Is it the person who thought of the idea? So I think that's something as creators, as content creators, you guys really, really need to think about, and in effect, brands need to think about that too. But it's an interesting road. It's a great journey ahead. I'm super excited to see how effectively do we use this in content marketing efforts as well. Thanks.
And there you have your tutorial 101. So I hope you took notes as well for this one. And now we'll move to Forum. So, Forum, please, let's talk about measurement that actually matters, right? I mean, I'm not talking about the dusty old spreadsheets, but I'm talking about genuinely that how metrics show that Gen Z campaigns are connecting and not just performing.
So you have your usual performance metrics like views, reach, etc. But the first metric that forms a real connection is your saves and shares. It actually shows that the Gen Z audience is saving or finding your content valuable enough to save it for future. And share is even more critical because they go above and beyond and share it with their friend. So this move from personal value to, actually peer endorsement is where the first real connection lies. I think second is UGC and participation. Is Gen Z simply watching, or are they actually creating content from your brand filter or the hashtag that they have used? This shows that they've adopted the brand. And lastly, I think one of the most important things is like we track the search lift. So we actually want to know that the audience is curious enough, or the campaign has made the audience curious enough to actually leave the app and search for the brand online. I think that is where the real connection is formed beyond your performance metrics that you have.
I think so true. Like, a million views won't matter if the Gen Z watched it on mute, or for that matter, anybody. We have time for very quick 3 questions. We really have to wrap up soon. So we'll quickly move on to Muskan. Muskan, you live, breathe content formats, right? So let's talk about the ones Gen Z actually chooses and not the ones that brands force.
So I think that this question every brand has as to, what are we supposed to do that will make Gen Z approve of it. I would like to answer it in 3 simple words. Keep it short, native, and real. Why is because, 73% of the Gen Zs today are going to, just scroll away your reel because they did not resonate with you. Or basically, your reel did not make them feel more like human. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to have that transparency with the audiences, and also think from the perspective of what Gen Zs would like to see, instead of thinking what our marketing team or what our marketing agency thinks that should go on our page. Also, I would say that when we were talking about the time spans for short videos, let's keep it around 10 to 15 seconds because the trend keeps on changing now and then. Also, apart from just videos, I would suggest that there are many interactive options on Instagram like polls, quiz. Also, build a community, build a network, because the real win is when the followers that you have on your page are actually connected with you, and that is what matters the most, and that is what is going to get you more sales. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll move to Sonia. Sonia, please tell us now, let's talk about commitment. I'm not talking about the romantic kinds, but the brand collab ones. So are long-term brand and creator partnerships still effective, or do Gen Z audiences move on too quickly?
Let me put it out like that. When I entered the corporate world, I was very cautious about what to talk to my colleagues. If I'm being put on a call with a brand head, I'll be like, oh my God, did I even say something right? And now I'm living the Gen Z world where I'm just surrounded by Gen Zs in my team. And obviously I have to take them on a lot of calls with senior folks from different brands and agencies. And recently this incident happened and one of them was like, Sonia, can I say something? I'm like, okay, go ahead. And she just said it out there in front of the brand head, and I was like, oh my God, what did she just say? And then I was like, okay, no, she put it out there because it in itself is like an insight. It's a learning, because these Gen Zs today are so authentic, they're transparent, they're honest. And I think that is what brands want today. So if I have to look at long-term collaborations, yes, it does work. This is something they always prefer. But only if it's driving some purpose, only if it's actually driving some impact, and only if it's actually leading to some kind of community building where they can really participate. If that's there, then yes, definitely it's a long-term game for them as well. Thank you.
That's interesting. And the second last question is for Satinder. Satinder, you've seen the pressure go viral, you've seen the pressure to go viral crush creativity, okay? So let's address the content first. How do you keep authenticity when today every brief wants to go viral?
I heard in the last panel somebody making a note mentioned that virality is not the goal, That's true. Any brand who wants to become viral, the first thing which we all are saying is the transparency, authenticity, because that will get the consistency to the brand. We all are talking one word, one language, but I think brand need to understand today is that trust. I'll give you a very simple example. In fact, I have a couple of examples. Netflix had a backlash on user password a few years back. Now, they could have ignored the noise, but they didn't do it. They had very conversational poll with the Gen Zs who were not with the conversation, like they were not agreeing to it. It means that brand need to accept the mistakes. They need to have a conversational, because that will get the trust. And that's what Gen Z wants, that the trust they need to build on the brand. Second example I'll give you, also your competitor brand, Bumble. I think they also had created a noise on certain content where they had to do an apology, and of course they removed the ads, and of course they also had this noise from the Gen Z. The content didn't go well with them. So what I'm making a point here is that be honest. Put there. If as a brand you've said something and you're feeling that your audience is not perceiving in a right way, apologize in a nicer way. Of course, in a way you would like to, because trust is something that I feel is the major authenticity which we need to bring on the table. So connecting, consistency, all that we talk about. But trust is something that if a brand, all of us, except Muskan, are from the millennial. She is one of the Gen Z who doesn't want to, I want to bring this to, because she is a Gen Z, but when we sat and spoke to her, we actually got a vibe of like somebody who understands a brand at this age. That is why she is able to bring that on the table to her clients. So trust is something that we should definitely talk about. Thank you.
Okay, and the last and the most interesting question I think all of us want to know about is Chandni. We'll end this with you because you see the myths that brands cling to, like comfort food, right? So what are the common myths about Gen Z in today's time, and how can a marketer demystify these?
Fantastic question. I think that's the best way to sum it up. So thank you for that, Ankita. I think one thing that we've been hearing almost 3 times by now is Gen Zs have low attention span. So maybe I should start with that. Because when you start going deeper into what this really means, is when we've been checking our own assets across industries, right? Sometimes 45 seconders are doing better. Sometimes 15 seconders are doing better. And I think it's not about attention span as long as Gen Z is actually very selective about what they're consuming. As long as you've done the storytelling right, as long as you've hit the emotional points right. What Gen Zs are really looking for is an emotional payoff in your content communication. If that's not there, they've already scrolled past you before you know it. So they're very quick to judge or quick to detect, but once they've got your sweet spot, you've done your communication right, actually they stick around to watch your entire content asset. Right? So that's the first myth that we've worked through over a while. And the second, I also feel, we covered commitment. And it's amazing how we also saw it in the dating landscape as well as in content landscape. One is that they're not as anti-commitment as we believed, right? The myth was always that they're anti-commitment, they want to skip brands, they want to skip content, they're going to not stick for long. But I think it required us to go back and take a very hard look. Every brand needed to go back and say, what do we mean by being authentic? What do we mean by being real? And if I'm being real, how do I talk to this audience, right? So it needs to go through multiple layers to understand how do your worldviews match with this segment. right? And I think the third myth was that Gen Z is one bucket. So there's so many sweeping stereotypes that we've created for this segment. So we're sorry for that. But largely, actually, if you break it down, you got to design with nuance when it comes to this segment. You know, the early Gen Z is very different from the late Gen Z. The ones who are in urban areas, very different from T2, global, very different from India. So don't go wrong with the segmenting. Understand who you're talking to. So as we sort of go through these myths, we also start going towards these realities. For brands, I would just say, how do you demystify this, right? You got to go deeper into the layer and say, what signal should we look at? We need to shift the entire way we see the space. Now we're looking at comments. We're looking at DMs. We're looking at micro behaviors, not the headlines, not the likes, right? So move away from the usual that you used to see. Second is create with them. Co-creating content with Gen Zs is not difficult. Earlier, previous generations used to be our audience. Now, Gen Zs actually are micro communities. They want to create with you. They give you immediate feedback. So understand your micro communities, co-create with them. And third is design with nuance. You know, once you know which stories for which Gen Z, speak to them in a personalized manner. And I know this, we've heard this a lot of times, but actually we need to go really deep to be relevant. Think of it as a person, right? If you're in a room speaking to a group full of people, if you're going to say the same speech to all of them, probably no one's listening to you. So it's very important that you've understood that person before you start talking to them, and hence the segmenting needs a whole new playbook.
I think that's perfect. I think myths busted, and Zeus and Poseidon are probably overthinking and shaking right now. But I think that's also an eye-opener. And this is what brings us to the end of this amazing conversation. Thank you, dear panelists. And it was truly a pleasure to be a part of connecting, having a conversation. And if there's one thing we've learned here today is that Gen Zs aren't confusing. We've just been asking them the wrong questions, I think. They are not unpredictable, they are honest, and they'll tell you what hits, flops, or what is not giving at all. They want clarity, attention, authenticity, and they want brands with a very clear personality than rather being themselves. Or as us boomers, millennials, and Gen X would quote, they didn't start the fire, but they are definitely deciding where the sparks are flying.
I just want to add one line that sums it up. Seedhi baat, no bakwas.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you once again. Let's give another big round of applause to this wonderful panel. Amazing insights, beautiful conversations. Thank you, Ankita, for moderating it so beautifully. And I'd like you to present our token of appreciation to each of our panelists. All right, everyone, let's give it up one more time for our power panel of women. Thank you so much for that wonderful conversation.